the lead here, Matthew. And that is this, because there was a piece this morning by Adam Rittenberg at ESPN.com putting coaches with programs. And one of the things that was said there in that piece was that Eli Drinkwitz would probably want out of Missouri now because the schedule is going to be tough next year and really tough in 2027. And one observer and an industry source said that this is the time for Eli Drinkwitz to get out. I talked to a Mizzou source who told me that Drinkwitz has not broached that subject of leaving the University of Missouri with Missouri at this stage. And to quote the source, said, "We will do whatever it takes to keep Eli Drinkwitz, and we have whatever it takes to keep him." Now, if I'm Eli Drinkwitz and I can go 9-4, 10-3, and I can keep my job and be relatively comfortable and try to do better next year, I think I'd rather have that situation where you go 9-4 and 10-3 and get whacked. And then you're looking for a job again, and you probably aren't going to wind up with a job as good as the University of Missouri job. I get why Eli Drinkwitz would be connected with these other jobs. I could even understand if Drink would want to go to a place where national championships have been won before. Florida, I would not touch LSU now, but I could understand it. That being said, I think if you look long-term, if you play the long game, if you're Eli, do you have a better chance of staying long-term and building a great program at Missouri based on recent history? That's Gary Pinkel, Barry Odom, Drinkwitz. Or do you have a better chance of staying long-term and building a sustainable championship program at the University of Florida? I think the recent history tells us that you have a better chance, maybe not to win a national championship, but at least to stick around and build a program at Mizzou.
Yeah, and I think we've seen plenty of struggling from Florida coaches who, despite the fact they have the recruiting backyard and all those things, they can't turn it around because whatever the reasoning is. And listen, I'll say it, all things equal, I get why people say that Florida is a better job. But I can't get away from everything you're talking about, which is just the job security is completely different. The ability to actually have a long-term plan is completely different. It sets up completely different. It changes how everything you handle. And fine, yeah, the backyard's better, but as long as you can get kids in and pay them NIL money, then that's what matters.
There you go. That's the key. It doesn't matter where a kid grew up anymore. A kid from Sarasota, Florida, that is offered $50,000 a year by Florida and is offered $100,000 a year by Missouri, that kid's going to Missouri. Players are in it for the money now. And just go back, and I use this all the time, but I think it's appropriate to use. When Nick Saban talked to Congress a few years ago about NIL and the transfer portal, he said the reason that he left is because they had recruits over to his house, and Miss Cherry, his wife, came up and said, "What are we doing here?" He said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Well, it used to be that players wanted to come here to play football, become better men, win national championships, go to the NFL." He said, "Now all I'm hearing from these kids is how much money am I going to get?" That's where we are in college football. It's not about where do I have the best chance to win, although that's a big part of it. It's not about what gets me closest to home. It's about where do I get the most money? And I think that's really important for everybody to keep in mind here. It doesn't matter. The Mizzou, remember the kid Miles McVay, really good offensive lineman out of East St. Louis a few years ago? He didn't go to Mizzou because they couldn't pay him as much.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He went to Alabama because they paid him. And he's not the only one. Why do you think Ryan Wingo isn't at Mizzou, but he's at Texas? Because Mizzou wouldn't pay him as much. They didn't want to give him as much as Luther Burden was making at the time. They didn't want to make Wingo their highest paid receiver. That's why it all really ultimately comes down to money.
And let's just actually break down Rittenberg's point here. So he's saying that they've capitalized on the SEC schedule across their past two campaigns, but Drinkwitz hasn't beaten a ranked opponent in the league. Next season, the Tigers will visit Georgia and Ole Miss. They will host Texas, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Florida. So here's the thing. They've gone down to the Swamp and they've beat Florida before. They beat Oklahoma last year. They've given Georgia some pretty close games while they've been one of the top-ranked teams in the nation. And they've beaten Ole Miss before. Before. Now, they weren't really good, but nonetheless, And as I keep pointing out, you want to focus on the 1-7 in top 10 games, then you can't ignore just what Alabama and Georgia were for 5 of those losses.
Right.
And yeah, you can say, well, then why do you want to keep a coach who can't beat a number 1 or 2 team? And I would say, are you delusional? And so that's Rittenberg's point here on the ESPN article. And I just don't even see or agree with that line of thinking. If the only thing you're going to use is just he hasn't beaten a ranked opponent in the league, that just seems like a weird lean for Drinkwitz, is that your supposition is that he can't beat ranked opponents with Missouri teams. But that would tell me that you haven't really watched or paid attention to a lot of the Missouri games against top 10 teams, because it's not like they're getting blown out every week.
Right. And so if that is the case, if you haven't beaten ranked teams, how would John Sumrall ever get a job, the Tulane head coach? How would Lane Kiffin have gotten jobs before he got to Ole Miss? He wasn't beating anybody when he was at USC. He wasn't beating anybody at, was it FAU or FIU that he was at? Florida Atlantic, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He wasn't beating any top 10 teams there. I think where you find the teams that consistently beat top 10 teams, that's at Ohio State, that's at Georgia, that's at Alabama. There's probably like 4 schools and 4 coaches that have done that on a consistent basis. And if that is going to be your critique of Eli Drinkwitz, I think that it's pretty misguided, because, for example, everybody seems to agree that James Franklin is a great coach. But one of the reasons he got fired at Penn State is because he wasn't consistently beating the top 10 teams. Well, you know what? Urban Meyer won like 91% of his games. And Ryan Day has had the same statistic at Ohio State. Ohio State is a behemoth in college football and have been for a long time. And nobody's beaten them consistently except for Jim Harbaugh and the residue of the Harbaugh program at Michigan. Otherwise, they don't get beat. Even to this point, at least, Curt Cignetti has not beaten Ohio State. Oregon is in the league now, and he has gone up and beaten Oregon. But Oregon is an absolute power. It's not a disgrace to lose to Ohio State and lose to Oregon now and then. Those are really great programs. Would you like to beat them on a regular basis? Yes. Would you like to win a national championship? Yes. Here's the thing. James Franklin last year was 4 quarters away from getting to the national championship game, and he still got whacked this year. Let's see how much better they do than that.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice. We're going to get Indiana in that Curt Cignetti answer this year, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, and by the way, I've mentioned this to you. Everybody I talk to about college football, if for whatever reason Eli Drinkwitz would depart the University of Missouri, if I am Laird Veach, and I know Laird Veach is the guy who promoted Ryan Silverfield at Memphis, he would be the logical guy for Veach to call. I would hope that Laird Veach's first call would be to James Franklin if he would lose Eli Drinkwitz, because he's a great coach. He got Vanderbilt to a couple of 9-win seasons before that was pre-transfer portal and pre-NIL.
What about some of the
James Franklin can coach?
What about some of the post-firing reporting that it wasn't just the results on the field that caused the early trigger? There were people in the Penn State organization who had become very graded on by his personality and his leadership style.
Tough. You know,
we just saw this thing with we saw what happened with Schilt, though. I mean,
yeah, but
is there going to be a long-term, like, are you risking the long-term plan by hiring a guy who just found out that 10 years in he was starting to grade on people?
10 years in.
I know it's 10 years in.
People figured it out.
Yeah.
So maybe what graded
well,
on
no. 10 years in, he started losing enough that it
there you go.
Material enough.
There you go.
On.
So we know he can coach. And I do think that sometimes, and especially in this era, and we talked about this off the air yesterday, there is a large group of people that just can't abide a desire for excellence on the part of some. For example, I don't think Tony La Russa would be a popular manager right now because of his
wouldn't at all.
Yep, his insistence on excellence and doing things the right way. There's no way Vince Lombardi could coach now. Dick Vermeil says he could not coach now. And it's in part because of the level of access you have to the players, but also the lack of ability on the part of many people to accept a demand for excellence. And I have to believe that's part of what a guy like, as an example, James Franklin runs into. I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Saban were still coaching, if he were still running into that too.
Craig Lewis, could it be, no matter how much we, the fans, believe otherwise, that maybe Mizzou is simply not a top 10 program, no fault of Drinks?
Absolutely.
I don't believe that. I don't believe there's any parameters.
They're not a top 10.
There's money's a parameter, but if you have the money, and Mizzou right now has a pretty good amount of money, you can become a top 10 program in college football.
You can
look at Oregon
ranked in the top 10, but is Mizzou, from a program standpoint, better than Alabama?
No.
Better than Georgia?
No.
Better than LSU?
No.
Better than Texas?
No.
Oklahoma? Ohio State? Michigan? Oregon?
No. But Oregon's in there now.
I know, but it took them a long
time. 20 years and a lot of money.
Yep. Notre Dame.
Yeah, unfortunately. Get in the conference.
Yeah. We want them to get in. But so you've got the Big Ten, you've got Ohio State, and I'm not even including Indiana because that's not a real blue blood program, right? But Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia. Did I say Ohio State? Yeah. A&M over the course of time has been a stronger program. Is Mizzou a top 20 program, top 25? Absolutely. But I think if you're going, I think you're kind of out of touch if you're thinking that Mizzou is a program that people around the country perceive as a consistent top 10 program. They're never ranked. Yeah. They've been ranked in the top 15 4 times in history.
Yeah, that's fair. Gator alumnus here, not sold on Drink. Moreover, thinking the money guaranteed these days is insane. How freaking complicated can coaching be? I pay based on performance and search for a young maverick.
You are just like the governor of Louisiana. Well, here's the thing. If you're going to get a great coach, that's what the going rate is. It's supply and demand. It's economics that we all learned in 5th grade. Ryan Day is very expensive. And that is what you have to do. Is you have Kurt Signetti has become very expensive. Dan Lanning has become very expensive. The coaches that are at the top of the game are the coaches that are making the most money. And you might think it's too much, but at one point, Nick Saban was the highest paid public servant, air quotes, in the state or in the country, in the United States of America. And his governor said that he was a bargain.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches that make a lot of money make the institution and make the state a lot of money too. Hey, Missouri, get ready. The wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today. New Missouri customers get $300 in bonus bets when DraftKings launches on December 1st. Download the app now and place a $5 bet when DraftKings goes live, and DraftKings Sportsbook will bring everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning-fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when DraftKings officially goes live in Missouri, you'll be betting with a sportsbook app trusted by millions. It's safe, it's secure, and has fast money withdrawals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when DraftKings goes live December 1st in Missouri. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.